I took a sip of coffee that morning, expecting the usual bills or junk mail. Instead, a letter changed everything. The paper was crisp, official looking, with a seal embossed at the top. My name printed in bold. Effective immediately, your 50-acre ranch is designated as community property. I read the sentence twice, feeling a pulse of disbelief. The same ranch my grandfather broke his back to build. The land I poured my savings into. The home I bled for. My fingers tightened on the page. The letter continued, all fences, barriers and signage must be removed to comply with HOA guidelines. I laughed out loud, a short, incredulous bark. But the laugh died in my throat. This wasn't a prank. The letter was signed, notarized, and filed. An hour later, I was standing at my gate when a tan sedan rumbled up the driveway. The HOA logo on the door made my stomach turn. Out stepped Margaret Dawson. She looked like a corporate scarecrow stuffed into a blazer 3 sizes too small. She carried a clipboard in one hand, her expression smug as she approached. "Mr. Monroe," she called, voice dripping fake sweetness. "We sent you notice about the community designation. We'd like to walk you through the next steps." I folded my arms. "Next steps?" Margaret's lips curved. "Yes, transition can be smooth if everyone cooperates." I let the silence grow thick between us. Finally, I spoke. "This is private property. It always has been." She gave me a pitying look, as though I were a child failing to grasp simple math. "Our board voted unanimously to bring your ranch into the HOA. Since the land has historically been accessible to neighbors, it qualifies," I snorted. "Historically? You mean the one time I let old Mrs. Kavanaugh pick blackberries along the fence?" Margaret ignored that. "It's time to think about the community. We'll expect compliance within 30 days. Behind her, 2 other board members flanked her like sentries, their clipboards held tight to their chests. I took a slow step closer. "Listen carefully. My land isn't yours. If you or anyone else sets foot past that fence again, I'll consider it trespassing." Margaret only smiled. "It is now." That was when a silver SUV rolled up. A family of 4 got out. 2 kids, a golden retriever, and parents with matching golf shirts. They waved at Margaret like she was a hostess at a resort. "Thought we'd take a walk." The father called cheerfully. I strode toward them, voice sharp. "No, you won't." The mother blinked. But Margaret said. "I don't care what Margaret said. This is my property." The father's smile slipped. "No need to get nasty, buddy." I stared him down, every muscle in my jaw locked. Margaret clucked her tongue. "Jack, this hostility isn't productive." I looked her straight in the eye. "Margaret, if you don't leave right now, you'll be off this land with a garden hose." Her composure cracked. "Fine," she spat, her eyes narrowed. "You'll be hearing from our lawyer." They left in a huff. But I wasn't done. I pulled out my phone and called Curtis McGraw, my lawyer. My last line of defense. 20 minutes later, I sat across from him in his office. Curtis didn't flinch as I laid out every detail. When I finished, he leaned back, expression grim. "Classic power grab," he said. "They don't have legal standing, but they're betting you'll cave." "I won't," I said. Curtis's grin was slow and feral. "Then we fight." By dawn, I was at the records office, combing through every document that proved my ranch was never part of any HOA. I found exactly what I needed. And that was only the beginning. By the next evening, I was back at the ranch with truckloads of fencing material, reinforced barriers, motion sensor lights, cameras, and a piece de resistance, an electric fence powerful enough to make a grown man regret his life choices. Not lethal, just persuasive. The first test came faster than I expected. 3 SUVs rolled up like a parade of entitlement. Neighbors poured out, picnic baskets in hand. Margaret led them, face smug. "This is community land," she declared. I leaned against the fence, arms folded. "Then by all means," I said. Step over. A man in khakis did exactly that. He reached for the gate latch and yelped as the current zapped his hand. A cheerless hush fell. I shrugged. Private property. Keep out. Margaret's face went purple. This is illegal. Actually, I replied, it's not. County Code Section 14. Non-lethal fencing is permitted to deter trespassers. Her jaw clenched. Pack up, I called to the crowd. You're done here. The group scattered. Margaret lingered, her fury palpable. This isn't over. She hissed. Good, I said. I'm just getting started. The next day, she sent a cease and desist letter. I sent it straight to Curtis. His response was simple. If you claim Mr. Monroe's land as HOA property, you also claim all financial liability, including 20 years of unpaid dues. I watched her face when she read that bill. $200,000 and counting. Her voice wobbled. You can't be serious, I smiled. Deadly serious. That weekend, she tried one last stunt, a neighborhood picnic in my pasture. They spread blankets, set up grills, even erected a volleyball net. It was absurd. I didn't stop them. I waited. When the first kid kicked a soccer ball into the fence, the crackle and shriek were my victory song. Margaret came storming up, screaming about lawsuits. I pointed at the sign. Trespassers will be zapped. She left trembling with rage. And I knew then, no matter how many letters she sent, how many votes she staged, she'd already lost, because I was willing to do what she wouldn't, stand my ground. The days after the electric fence debacle passed like a strange fever. Word spread through town faster than any wildfire. Some called me crazy, others called me a hero. But none of them understood how deep this fight ran. It wasn't just about property lines or bylaws. It was about principle. About the idea that someone could bully their way into your life and steal the ground you'd bled to keep. Margaret tried everything to save face. She filed complaints with the county. She organized meetings to rally support. She even tried to shame me in the local paper, calling my fences dangerous and hostile. But she underestimated something vital. No one likes a tyrant in a pantsuit. Homeowners were tired of her petty rules. Tired of her fines for mailbox colors and grass heights. Tired of being told when they could repaint their shutters or plant a tree. And my story, my refusal to bend, became the match to light all that dry resentment. The next HOA meeting wasn't like the others. This time, the parking lot overflowed with cars. Neighbors who hadn't attended in years showed up, crossing their arms and glaring at the front table where Margaret sat, trying to pretend she still held authority. I didn't stand in the back this time. I walked right up the aisle, boots echoing against the cheap laminate floor, and sat in the second row. My presence alone was enough to spark murmurs. Margaret cleared her throat, voice strained. We're here to discuss the ongoing situation regarding Mr. Monroe's property. Someone from the back spoke before she could continue. We're here to discuss your leadership. The woman turned. She was small, with iron gray hair and the kind of steady gaze that didn't blink. I'm tired of the way you run this place, she said. I'm tired of the fees, the threats. And I'm tired of you acting like you own us. A murmur of agreement rippled through the room. Margaret tried to recover her composure. Mrs. Howard, I understand you're upset, but you lied to us, Mrs. Howard interrupted, her voice sharper. You told us Jack's land was ours to enjoy. You told us he agreed to be part of your little fiefdom. Margaret's face flushed. It was a misunderstanding. No, I said calmly. It was a lie. Every head turned my way. I stood slowly, letting the silence stretch. For months, I said, voice level. You've heard her version. Let me give you mine. And I told them. Not just about the letter or the electric fence. I told them about the way she laughed when I protested. About the smug certainty that no one would stand up to her. About the day I watched strangers walk across my pasture as if my grandfather's hard work meant nothing. When I finished, no one spoke. Margaret's eyes darted across the crowd, searching for all eyes. But none remained. A man in the front row raised his hand. "I make a motion," he said, "to remove Margaret Dawson as president effective immediately." Another hand shot up. "I second." Margaret opened her mouth, but no words came out. "All in favor?" A sea of hands rose. When the count was done, it wasn't even close. Margaret sat there for a moment, as if her brain couldn't process that she'd lost. Then she stood, gathering her papers with trembling fingers, and walked out without another word. No one stopped her. No one thanked her. They simply let her leave. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, all I felt was relief, like a toxin finally draining out of the air. After the meeting, a few board members approached me. They looked nervous, almost embarrassed. "Jack," one began, "you know we're in a mess now. Without Margaret, we have no clear leadership. We'd like you to consider stepping in." I nearly laughed. "You want me to be HOA president?" A middle-aged woman nodded. "Not forever. Just long enough to help us clean this up." I studied their faces. Some were the same people who had once believed Margaret's lies. But tonight, they looked different, humbled, maybe even ashamed. And if there was one thing I'd learned about power, it was that it only works if you let it. I took a slow breath. "I'll consider it," I said, "but on one condition." The woman swallowed. "Anything." "I'm not going to be your next Margaret," I said. "If I do this, I'm going to end this HOA." A ripple of shock. "That's not a threat," I continued. "That's a promise." No one argued, and that was how, 3 days later, I found myself sitting at Margaret's old desk in the cramped HOA office, a gavel in front of me and a copy of the bylaws in my hand. The first meeting was brief. "I'm Jack Monroe," I said. "I didn't want this job. But now that I have it, I'm going to make sure no one else ever uses it the way Margaret did." I tapped the gavel, motioned to dissolve this HOA permanently. A stunned hush. Then one by one, hands rose. When the last hand lifted, I felt something shift deep in my chest. "Motion carried," I said quietly. And just like that, it was over. No more arbitrary fines. No more intimidation. No more theft disguised as policy. We posted the notice on the community board the next morning. "The HOA is dissolved effective immediately. You are all free to manage your own homes." Some cheered. Some cried. Everyone seemed lighter. And me? I went home. I took down the electric fence. I pulled up the warning signs. And when it was done, I stood in the center of my pasture, breathing in the clean, unclaimed air. It felt like freedom. But the story didn't end there. About a week later, I got a letter. Not from a lawyer or an angry neighbor. This one came from Mrs. Howard, written in careful cursive. "Jack, I wanted to thank you for standing up when no one else would, for reminding us all that a community isn't built on fear. It's built on respect. I hope you'll forgive the rest of us for not seeing it sooner." I folded the letter, tucked it in my jacket pocket, and walked out onto my porch. Sunset poured gold over the fields. I thought of my grandfather, how he'd broken ground here with nothing but calloused hands and a conviction that no one could take what he earned. I understood that better now than ever. This ranch wasn't just land. It was proof that some things are worth defending, no matter how long it takes. I didn't keep the title of president. The next meeting, I resigned with a smile. "You're free," I told them, and I meant it. The neighborhood changed after that. No more bickering over paint colors. No more letters threatening fines. People planted gardens, painted their mailboxes, put up swings for their kids. No one asked permission. No one needed to. And as for me, I finally got some sleep. Sometimes I'd wake before dawn, walk the fence line, and feel the peace I'd fought for settle deep into my bones. It was mine. All of it. Forever. And no one would ever take it again.